Welcome back to the Weekly Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Owen, and today we'll be discussing my top 5 quarterback rankings and how they have differed from the beginning of the season, as well as going to be diving into the Heisman odds right now and who I think the Heisman will be at the end of the season, as well as maybe a dark horse pick from a non-likely position, non-favorite position of quarterback, wide receiver, running back kind of thing like that. Skill position. We'll go skill position. That's what I'm looking for. But before that, we, of course, have an ad. Attention all Weekly Huddle followers, I have a huge announcement. I have joined up with Caleb from whpcrew on YouTube to help work on a draft and dynasty football database. It is called the Dynasty Index and contains detailed content revolving around both dynasty fantasy football and NFL draft coverage. On this new platform, you will find dynasty player rankings, NFL draft prospect rankings, detailed player scouting reports, and much more. I am so happy to be working on this project with Caleb and the rest of our contributors, and we've already gotten so much information and exclusive content on the site ready for you to dive into. I personally have been putting a ton of effort into this, and I am recommending you check it out. The subscription prices are $3 a month or $20 a year, and if you ask me, you get way more on the site than what you're paying for, so it's a definite steal. If you are interested, contact Caleb on Twitter at KeelPro88 or email him at calebschmidt7@gmail.com. Once you get your subscription, you'll have full access to the Notion server, and will even be able to have access to it through the Notion app on your phone. So don't wait, subscribe now, and get access to one of the best draft databases and dynasty ranking sites. Thank you, past tense Owen, who lives in that ad permanently. I'm sorry, I've imprisoned you there for so long. But yeah, so we're going to jump right into it. At the beginning of the year, I made a video on my YouTube channel where I laid out my top 5 quarterbacks heading into the season. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend you go back and listen to what I had to say about all these prospects before the season started, especially because if you go back and watch it, you'll see that I have been on the Malik Willis QB1 hype train since the beginning of the season. I was never a Spencer Rattler guy. I had him as my number 2 quarterback, but I mean, it wasn't based on what I saw. It was based on the potential, because I knew he had arm talent, and everyone ever was always telling you, hammered in your head, he's the next thing, this, he's the next thing, that, and I just think that I was more swept up in the craze of what everyone else was saying as opposed to listening to my own instincts. So I made him my number 2 because I saw the arm talent, heard what everyone else was saying, so I was like, all right, I'd probably be stupid if I didn't make him my number 2. But I was on Malik Willis at 1. I had Spencer Rattler at 2. I had Matt Corral at 3. I believe Sam Howell at 4. Just double checking real quick. Yep, Sam Howell at 4, and then Carson Strong at 5. Now, we're about 10 weeks into the college season. If not, we're going to be going on to 10 weeks. And that list has changed substantially. Mostly, I have 3 of those spots are different. There are 3 players that are still in top 5. 2 haven't moved, 1 has moved, and there's 2 brand new players in the list. So we're going to hop right into it. So we'll start at the 5. So my number 5 at the beginning of the season, before the season started, was Carson Strong. And this one is controversial, but if you saw my Guys video, the most recent one, you would know that this guy I am pretty high on. I'm higher on him than most people are. And I was more surprised to how that he graded out half a point higher than Desmond Ridder. So, shocker, Desmond Ridder isn't on this list. But this guy graded out half a point higher. I'm just as impressed with his resume and impressed with his talents as I am with Ridder's. And he does it with a much worse team. And he's much more experienced than Ridder, they're both seniors. And I'm talking about Jake Haener, quarterback out of Fresno State. Haener, before the season started, I believe only had 10 starts to his name, transferring over from Washington. And he also has the distinction of being the only player I've ever scouted that is younger than me. He just turned 19 in October. He was born in 2002, but he's a redshirt senior because I don't know if he skipped grades while he was in school. He played his entire high school career, freshman to senior year, and he was a 15-year-old freshman at Washington. So, like I said, him and Ridder are both seniors. I think Haener's actually got 1 more year experience. He's a redshirt senior. But he's 19 as opposed to Ridder, who I believe is going to be 23 when he starts his rookie year, whereas Haener will be able to throw a pass in the NFL at 19 years old. So, I like Haener's arm strength. I like his decision-making and his accuracy, especially for how limited starts he has and how young he is. He's not as good of an athlete as Ridder is, and I feel like he has some things that, with more game experience and more coaching, and with age, he'll be able to physically, mentally mature more and be able to get ahead of the curve. Whereas Ritter, I feel like he has less of a ceiling because just purely because of age. Ritter has a high ceiling if you can get his footwork down, but I think Haener, being so young and showing as much talent as he had in such limited reps and at such a young age, and he's played good competition. He played Oregon, he played UCLA. He has played good games against those tough opponents, and he's shown grit and he's shown toughness to come play through injuries and things like that. He can be more consistent, which is why he's only number 5. But yeah, he's one of my guys, and I think he's the 5th best quarterback in this draft class as of right now, this moment. Number 4 is staying consistent as it was in the beginning of the season. For number 4 before was Sam Howell, and number 4, and again, now here is Sam Howell. I know he hasn't played as well as people were hyping him up to be as a QB1 before the season started. I never thought he was QB1. Like I said, I thought he was QB4. I thought he was physically limited, and he wasn't your Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers kind of guy who's going to go out there and make these gigantic, big splash plays and win games solely on those kind of plays athletically or passing. He's confirmed this season that's what he is. That's the prospect he is this season, and that's what I was predicting him to be coming into it. And now, so many weeks in, he has confirmed that. What I wasn't expecting was for him to come out and be such a good rusher as a quarterback. He has 6 100-yard rushing games this year. He's rushed for his 4th straight 100-yard rushing game. I think it was past Friday against when he upset. Who did he upset? I think it was Wake Forest. I believe it was Wake Forest. So he's proven me wrong with his athleticism. Maybe even if he has fallen off as a passer, maybe even just slightly, he's made up for it with the leaps he made in athleticism. So I'm going to leave him at 4. And I think he's one of those guys. My favorite fit for him is for the Broncos. Someone who, like a Baker Mayfield, who can make plays for you, can be that leader on the offense, and will get the ball to his playmakers and let them make plays instead of going out there and trying to play hero ball kind of thing. So if you have a team that has a bunch of playmakers, a wide receiver or at running back, like I said, I like him to fit with the Broncos. He's basically, I think he's another version of Baker Mayfield. Maybe he's accurate. Maybe now slightly more athletic based on what the season has shown, but I think Baker's a little bit better leader. So if you need someone who just needs to be accurate and distribute the ball to your playmakers, then Howell is your guy, and I think that's a first-round quality quarterback. Even though I have him as a second-round, grade. If that's the piece you're missing, like the Broncos are, to make a big run, then yeah, you take him in the first round, and I won't be upset with that. Apologies, I've been sick for the past week or so, and that's why I haven't really gotten a video out on top of just school being crazy. So I'm trying to fight through it for this episode. So number 3, a player who was completely off my radar and most people's radar before the season started, and now instead of Matt Corral at number 3, we have Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pitt. One of only 3 quarterbacks to have a first-round grade for me in this draft class, and Pickett is another kind of guy like Howell is, who is kind of your distributor, but I think he is slightly more accurate. He's got the leadership qualities. Even though he hasn't been with a high power, like North Carolina, no matter how much they lost last year, they've still always had like some of the higher end talent in that conference. They're always going to have good players. They're going to attract good players. There's always draftable players coming out of North Carolina. Whereas Pitt, you'll get the good offensive skill player here or there, but normally they're kind of lacking in that department consistently anyway. And Pickett has still made plays despite his lack of overall talent in the program, and he's led his team to some big wins this year. He's been accurate. He's been making smart decisions with the football, and he's found ways for his team to win. And I think that drafting him into the league, he's probably the only quarterback I could say you can play him week 1, and I'd be confident he'd be like a Case Keenum level of starter right now. Whereas he could probably grow a little bit into like a mid-level starter. He's not going to get any. He doesn't have the craziest highest ceiling, and I think it's a weird comp because I know it's probably just like you're looking at it, but like I like the Teddy Bridgewater comp. He's got a little bit of athleticism to him. He's more of a game manager kind of guy. I know because he has 2 gloves on, and people are gonna make that comp, but I think Bridgewater has shown that that is a viable way to play the game. Maybe he'll have to be drafted to a team that isn't a cold weather team or who has a dome, just so that way to minimize the amount of times that's gonna be scrutinized and he'll have to go out there and play in the elements, but even if he isn't, I still have confidence that he'll be able to go out and perform despite the elements, despite his small hands and things like that. My number 2 quarterback is Matt Corral, quarterback out of Ole Miss. He has moved up from 3 to 2 since the beginning of the season. Same things I said before the season kind of hold up now. He has some issues with turnovers occasionally, but he's a good athlete. He had very minimal starts coming into the season, and even overall, even with the starts he has this season, he's not even scraping close to the highest amount of starts of any of the quarterbacks in the draft class. He's good. He has a great. Obviously, Ole Miss is known for having some offensive talent coming out of there, but I think even though he has the talent around him, he's shown flashes of this athleticism and this big play kind of mentality. He's got a good arm, and I think that he's another guy who, if you sit him for a year on the bench, you have him come out, he could be like a playmaker at quarterback. Whereas like Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett are more guys who are those pocket passer, game manager kind of guys. Corral is a dude who, even though his athleticism isn't top tier, he'll be able to go out there and make people miss in the pocket and make it, add to your running game. And as well as making these big plays with his arm, because he can make throws on like a bunch of different arm. What's the word I'm looking for? Arm angles. He can use different arm angles. He has necessary arm strength. He has decent accuracy. His decision making is what really causes his interceptions to really go all over the place. And he's in the SEC and he's facing some good defenses, so he's going out there and proving that he can hang with them. Maybe against Alabama he was a little outmatched, but at the same time Ole Miss is in general outmatched by Alabama. 2020 Alabama game was a lot better showing for him, but he's going out there, he's facing the top tier competition in the college landscape and showing those talents that we saw coming from last season into this season. Just needs to work on his decision making, which I don't know if that's really a fixable trait, but as players mature, sometimes they can grow out of that kind of thing. So we can only hope for that, and that's the only real biggest knock I have in Corral. He just needs more experience. Maybe you're on the bench and he'll be great. A good to great quarterback in the NFL. And I kind of foreshadowed it when I opened this episode up, but sticking with my number 1, he's not moving right now. I have quarterback Malik Willis out of Liberty. I think he's QB1. I thought my assumption or my proposal for him being QB1 before the season started was he is the only quarterback in this draft class who brings a talent or a quality or a trait that I think is a game-breaking level trait and has something where all these quarterbacks are going to be projects or you're not sure about or they have limited ceilings. Like there's question marks on all these quarterbacks. And if I'm going to take a quarterback with a question mark, I'm going to take a quarterback with a question mark but that I know has an elite trait. And Malik Willis' running ability is elite. It's a mix of Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. Somewhere in that spectrum, he fits there. He's a little more stockier and a little taller than Kyler. He's not as fast as Lamar or as shifty. So he's like a bigger. My comp is like a bigger Kyler Murray. If you just gave Kyler Murray the Super Mario mushroom and he grew a couple inches and gained like 10, 20 pounds, that'd probably be Malik Willis. And I kind of think that translates over to his throwing as well, whereas he's another guy like Desmond Ridder, who, again, didn't make the list, who has accuracy issues. And he had accuracy issues before this season, too. But if he can clean up that footwork, as we saw with like guys like Josh Allen, not so much this season, but last season, where he cleaned up his footwork and played less hero ball, he was able to throw the ball more accurately. I think that's more what Malik Willis needs to do. He's always going to have the hero ball in him, and it showed against like Ole Miss this past weekend. I just think if he had more talent around him, if Auburn stuck with Malik Willis over Bo Nix, I think Malik Willis would be a slam dunk number 1 overall quarterback in this draft class. Instead of us anticipating like, oh, he plays at Liberty, he has all these crazy throws and has these bad interceptions and stuff like that. Like, I understand all those problems still exist, but his running ability and the fact that the footwork is correctable and that may impact his throwing accuracy which we have seen in previous quarterbacks, I still think that makes him QB1 because of how elite the rest of his trades are. And his arm talent, everyone's sleeping on how strong this guy's arm is. He can make any throw to any level of field effortlessly. He just flicks it and it goes 50, 60 yards. So a lot of people won't put him in the conversation for strongest arm in this draft class, especially guys like Carson Strong in this draft class, but I think he's right up there with Strong, and I think his athletic ability pushes him to the top of the list. So that's my top 5 quarterbacks and how they've kind of moved around. Spencer Rattler, fallen way out of it. He's still a draftable. His talent is like first, second round talent. I still don't love his pocket presence. He's too scared in the pocket. He drifts too much backwards, making throws even longer than they were supposed to be, and he bails too quickly. But his arm talent in general is there. He's not good there mentally, and he's not there with pocket presence. So I think he'd be off my board if I was a GM. I'd probably look at someone else like Desmond Ridder, and then if those guys are all gone, instead of taking Rattler because I need a quarterback, I would just move on, live to see another year next year. If I'm a GM and you tell me I have to either punt on the season and then put my job on the line for a quarterback next season, or put my job on the line for Spencer Rattler, I am not doing it. So that's why he's on my top 5. Carson Strong has been good. I mean, he's physically limited. He's a pocket passer with a strong arm. So I can't. He was kind of the one scraping the bottom. I was between him and Desmond Ridder at the end of that list at the beginning of the season. So he fell out of it just because of the emergence of Kenny Pickett. So I can't really knock him there. Oh, and Jay Kaner. The emergence of Jay Kaner as well. So that's what the changes were. And in 1 second, when I come right back from getting a drink of water to help ease my throat up real quick, we're going to talk about the Heisman conversation. Now that the season's kind of getting to the end of, we're closer to the end than we are at the beginning. So I am on sportsnaut.com, and this is where I'm getting my Heisman Trophy odds. They follow up after every week, they give the new Heisman odds from Vegas or from wherever they get them from. I saw the ones from Vegas earlier today when I was at work, so these ones look pretty accurate to what I saw earlier. But right now, Bryce Young is the leader with plus 185 for Heisman Trophy, with Kenneth Walker in second at plus 300. Matt Corral at third, plus 450. C.J. Stroud, quarterback at Ohio State, 450. Caleb Williams, quarterback Oklahoma, 850. Kenny Pickett, plus 2,000. Sam Hartman, quarterback Wake Forest, 2,500. And then Trayvon Henderson, running back Ohio State, 3,500. So I know there's a lot of hype for Bryce Young, and he's played very, 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 very well for Alabama this season. But looking at Alabama's schedule, if he drops another game, so they lost to Texas A&M, and if they drop anything, they're not going to lose to New Mexico State, that's obviously. But if they lose to Arkansas or Auburn, I don't think you can, in good faith, tell me that Bryce Young would be the Heisman, even despite how good he's been playing. And I know that losses shouldn't take away from an individual's statistical output, but I mean, I think that maybe one player has proven more valuable to his team overall for their success, and as well as putting together one of the most historic seasons of a player at his position has, and it's going to be number 2 in the rankings list, which is Kenneth Walker. After his 5-touchdown game against Michigan, I think a lot of people were getting onto the bandwagon, which I've already been on for a couple weeks now, but I think he's definitely getting the more attention than I thought. I was actually surprised to see how high he was on the Heisman list, but he has been electric. And if he can lead his teams to wins over, well, he's got a tune-up game against Maryland, can't fall into the trap. But he has Michigan State has Ohio State and Penn State up. And if they can beat both of them, I'm pretty sure they'll be a shoo-in for the college playoffs. So I would personally think Kenneth Walker should get the Heisman this season. Bryce Young will have at least one more season to collect that trophy. But Kenneth Walker being a transfer and then really just exploding this season, I think he really earned it so far. But if I had to shout out one player who really is not a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, those typical skill positions, who I think kind of deserves the Heisman, I'm going to go with Will Anderson Jr., the edge out of Alabama. He has been, mostly because Kayvon Thibodeau has been injured, and maybe Kyle Hamilton has been better, but one of the best defensive players in the entire NCAA, and he's a sophomore, and he's starting at Alabama, and he has 9 sacks, which he's been in the top 5 of sacks for NCAA every week this entire season, and he has 17 tackles for loss, as long as 56 total tackles. Now, he's like a linebacker edge hybrid, but every time you watch Alabama, I don't care how much Bryce Young or Brian Robinson or anyone on offense pops off, every time I watch an Alabama game, every time I walk away, I'm like, oh, Will Anderson had a phenomenal game. He popped on tape. So I think that he is just the most explosive edge player, not named Kayvon Thibodeau in the draft, or in the NCAA, not in the draft. He's not draft eligible yet. But he's definitely probably up there with Noah Sewell, is probably going to be number 1, number 2 for next year's rankings, looking ahead of that. And he's just had such a phenomenal season at defensive end / linebacker / edge rusher in general, that if I had to pick a non-skill position player to win it, I'd have to go with him. But I did post this question on the Discord for the Draft Index, or Dynasty Index, which you definitely should go subscribe to. You'll get access to the Discord and be able to talk to me and Caleb freely. And I had someone in there suggest that with Adam Anderson being out for the rest of the season due to legal issues, and that defense being so historically good, that Nakobe Dean, if he can turn it on and keep that defense where it is at despite losing Adam Anderson, and even do better than he has been doing and win a national championship with just based off that defense alone, he has some consideration for it as well. So I kind of agreed with that. I still think Will Anderson has really proven to be just the most elite edge rusher, not one of the most elite defensive prospects that's going to be coming out in the past couple of years. And I'll have to shout out to the Draft Network, Draft Dudes podcast. Yesterday, they were talking about how they would say that a player such as Devin Lloyd, the linebacker out of Utah, should be in there with just, he has 25 tackles for loss, something like that, this season already. And also, I saw on the Vegas odds, Jordan Davis has a plus 9,000 odds. So I guess he's really amazing for what he can do at his size, but I don't think he has the stats to back it up. Of all those guys, I'm fairly confident Will Anderson would be the only one that could really hold up the snuff. But again, he's a long shot. He's not even on any of these lists. It'll probably be a quarterback, but if it was my vote, I think it would be Kenneth Walker. And that's going to be it for this entire episode of the podcast. I'm sorry, I've been really busy and also really sick the past week, so I wasn't able to really record consistently. I was going to react to the Bills game, but I got sick the day of the Bills game, slightly the day after, and I just wasn't able to come around and do it. I'll have my thoughts on that eventually, but I'm going to, since I'm coming out of the sickness now, I'm going to reward everyone who listens to the podcast with a 2-round mock draft next week, 2 episodes. One's going to be the first round, one's going to be the second round, following this weekend's games. And I'm going to post this up, and so we're going to get 2 episodes next week on top of this one. That's going to be coming out either Friday or Saturday before the college football games get underway. So that's the plan so far. I don't know if I'm going to have any mini videos or mini projects ready to sit down and start recording, but that's the plan for right now, and I hope I catch you there. Check out the Dynasty Index and all the Weekly Huddle on social media with Instagram and Twitter. You can catch my opinions on Twitter a lot, and we got some decent quality posts up there on Instagram, so go check those out too. So while I still have you, have a nice day.